Welcome back to SSRG and your view. We've talked about a lot of things recently, but today we decided, that we want to talk about diversity. There is a lot of discourse on diversity. Both people who are for diversity, who are against diversity. That's not where we are. We are not here to say you should be or be against diversity. We just want to have an honest conversation or try to have an honest conversation on why people think diversity is important. Like why, like in an organization, why is it important? And I think this is something that I have been thinking about recently because I applied for a grant which involved a small amount of money and I didn't get the grant. And one of the reasons that the people who were giving the grants gave was that I did not make a clear case on how I would ensure equity and diversity in my hiring of research assistants. And I kept thinking about this because in the school where I teach, 98% of the students are white. So for me to ensure diversity, it means that I would almost have to force the 2% that are not white to be hired by myself, even if they don't want to be part of my research. So it got me thinking, like, why is diversity is important? So I'm just gonna jump straight to the point. Why do you think diversity is important?
First, I would like to say that diversity makes life beautiful and it ensures we avoid a single story
Mm,
in the sense that we see things from just one perspective. So diversity allows us to view things from different lenses. So I would say this from my perspective as a master's student here with a very diverse cohort. And I know that a whole lot of things I've learned is outside of the classroom, but from from the diversity of the cohort. So when I think of it, I don't just think of things from the Nigerian angle of how will this problem be solved. I can see how, okay, in the Philippines how it will be solved, or from the angle of a Cambodian, how will this be solved? And that builds me up as a person and also as a problem solver, how to attack things from different ways. And I think this is also applicable to the world leaders, applicable to organizations. You would want an environment that can bring in, different ideas, and not just because a place where you stay and it's just one way everything goes, it doesn't really work. But when you have different ideas and different perspectives to things will work out better. So I think that is why, organizations these days will strive towards ensuring diversity. So
Yeah, I think that also from a governance kind of perspective, and we use Nigeria as a typical example, because we have multiple ethnic groups and different languages, and diversity doesn't just mean diversity in terms of the skin color, the race. There is gender diversity. If you're governing Nigeria, for example, that has multiple ethnic groups, over 300, I think, you want representation from those different ethnic groups, because you cannot just sit one place and make decisions for different people that are coming, that have different backgrounds and stuff. So this is why I think diversity is important in those offices, in those places where policies are made, where decisions are made. You need to have people talk about the experience of, oh, this is the experience of, for example, there was this book I read, New York, unrelated, but it's kind of related. New York, My Village by Uwem Akpan. And he made me realize that even while we're talking about the war, the Biafran war, for example, and people were talking about, oh, how Biafrans, predominantly Igbo people of the southeastern region, were like there were oppression going on at that time and all the bad things that happened during
do
that
you mean
war.
massacred or
Yeah,
okay?
massacre, the starvation and everything that went on. But he actually brought up a minority perspective because he's from Akwa Ibom,
Mm-hmm.
one of those and he made me understand that even though we are thinking about this majority experience, they experienced a different kind of harm and torture. So if we don't bring those kind of people to the policy spaces, we'll not understand like what they went through and how to even correct for those kind of issues that went on. So that's why diversity is important.
And
Mm.
Yeah.
again, like we are talking about the world is going global. Even countries or societies that are considered maybe monolingual or something, they are becoming very diverse because people are moving every day and societies are becoming more diverse. So it brings up the need to create an environment that will accommodate diverse opinions and diverse perspectives. So
Yeah, and when we think about the question about why diversity matters, I think another simple way to think about it is just to say diversity is the opposite of racism. For example, because with diversity you include people. It's about inclusion, right? So why all these things you guys have talked about are really important. Like Hope mentioned that when you have a diverse group, for instance, you are able to solve problems from a diverse perspective. And when you do that, it also makes problem solving faster. And even in organizational spaces, it makes for creativity. Because when people bring idea, people travel or people move to anywhere with their lived experiences, with their culture, with a lot of things, with their work experiences. So the more people you include, the more efficient and the more productive a group is. So when you include more people, it challenges racism because it's just like being welcoming to anybody, irrespective of their color or maybe their historical antecedents or whatever definition or preconceptions we have, of those people. So the instance you cited about the grant you applied for and how it might be difficult for you to recruit people who are not white, in quote, yeah, that's understandable, but I think that's the decision of those people who were supposed to give you the grant is kind of valid to some if I understand completely. I think it is, because a grant, for example, or when you want to apply to recruit research assistant, I think diversity is also very important.
So I wanted to say that first off, I do acknowledge that even though I didn't get the grant, insisting on diversity, even at the detriment of me getting the grant, is a good thing. And I also want to add a caveat, which I didn't mention previously. Diversity is not just about race either. It also has other aspects, gender, sexual orientation, and all what and all what.
Yeah.
So it's not just about race, and it's important to recognize that. But the only other thing I wanted to say is that I think diversity is so important that even in nature, organisms survive better when there is diversity.
Yeah.
So if you think about procreation, when the genetic makeup of these organisms are diverse, their children have higher chances of survival. And that is why, even in businesses, when you build your business and you use the same set of people who think the same way, you are limiting your ability to explode that business and to make it better. But when you bring diverse opinions, people would come from their cultural perspective. Even some languages have a particular way of describing things that helps you understand it better. So I think I do agree that diversity is so important in different ways. So, but my next question is, why all of a sudden are some people against diversity? What is that problem that has made diversity start sounding like a dirty word?
Okay, so I think the reason for that is that, just like the name implies, diversity. Diversity is diverse. This is it. And just like you try to point out now that diversity is not limited to race. It's also about sex, it's also about viewpoints, it's also about individual orientation, culture, and a lot of things. So I feel the reason why many people tend to be resistant to diversity is that diversity is including some things that to them are not morally okay.
Mm.
So this is what I think. When you think about sexual orientation, for instance, a lot of people are not okay with same-sex marriages, for example, homosexuality and things like that. So that is part of diversity, and a lot of people are still very conservative. So I think the reason for that pushback comes from the moral aspect of human
Okay, so
existence.
what
I
you are
think
trying to
okay.
say is that because people grow up believing things, right? So when there is diversity, it means that you introduce people with different beliefs and different orientation and different worldview, which challenges what a lot of people have grown up knowing. So they become
Exactly.
resistant to it.
Exactly. In other words, you can say that diversity challenges your comfort zone.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
because it challenges your comfort zone, you see it as invasion.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody is going, since you were born, you've always known and believed in heterosexuality, for example.
Mm.
So when somebody begins to tell you about homosexuality, for instance, it seems like you're trying to put a goat in theaters for the first time. So what the hell is this? What are these people coming to do? They are coming to erode our culture, our moral values, this kind of thing. So I,
Yeah,
I think
I think
that's one reason.
when it comes to
Okay.
sexuality and sexual orientation, there is more nuances that probably would deserve its own video. But I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
There's hope
you
and
are right.
TC.
Okay, I think another reason why it could be that, people are standing against diversity is that some people believe that it kills meritocracy. And the question here is it really truly meritocracy when people are not starting from the same point, which also points to one of the videos we've had about equity. So, can we truly say that it's meritocracy when people are starting from different points in life?
That's a
The
very good question.
I believe that we can find true merit when we, open ourselves to looking at things from different angles. Okay, what just like you said, social justice, what is this community missing? What is this person lacking? How can we meet everybody at the points of their need? So when we have this diverse perspective, we can be able to ensure true merit and not just saying, oh, we don't want diversity because, yeah. So that's simply what I think.
What Hope said is very interesting because true meritocracy lies in diversity. Because
Mm.
if you are not diverse, you cannot even define meritocracy because you continue to operate with the same group of people. For example, if you are an organization and you are not diverse, you continue to employ people because they are from the same ethnic group. So you continue to employ northerners or westerners, for example. But when you're diverse, you see that there are other people who have much more important skills to do that job than the people you have.
I'll give
Yeah,
TC the chance and then I'll wrap up.
yeah. I think one of the places where um, critics about diversity comes in is that as humans we tend to order people based on different social classes. It could be age. Even diversity also involves, you were mentioning the spectrum of diversity. Age is also part of diversity. Do you have younger people? Do you have older people across that spectrum in whatever organization or place you're trying to? But most times people see diversity as different. Oh, this person is different. I am different. And so we should not be in the same room. When in actual sense, it's that differentness, if that's a correct word, that makes
Just
us
go ahead. You
that
don't owe
makes us
English
You're not an
anything.
Englishman.
You do
that,
not owe English anything. Go
that
ahead.
it's that differentness that makes us humans. And like the if we learn to appreciate and be comfortable, the man was talking about being comfortable, be comfortable with being different, being in spaces that people are bringing diverse perspectives, then we can thrive as human beings. So that's just what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much. Before we wrap up, I wanted to say that I find the argument of meritocracy interesting because when people make the argument of meritocracy, the question is who defines what is
What
the
is,
merit?
yeah.
What is the standard? Who defines the standard? So think about it like this. I- if in India, when the British was in India, they created their hierarchy with white, the Brahman and the caste, using the caste system, but putting white people on the top, right? So, and this affected the job that people could have, the education that they could receive, and blah, blah, blah. But then because people in the lower class castes and people at the bottom could not go to school, so they couldn't get proper education. There were the untouchables and all that. So years later, they couldn't access the same job opportunities that other people, when it's now said this is by merit, this is meritocracy. But forgetting that historically there is a standard that was set that removed them from accessing this
Yes.
type of education. So now the narrative now changed to people in the lower caste tend not to go to school. So it's their fault because they didn't go to school. But that standard has been set, and then the rules are also set by those people who are at the top, so they decide what is merit. So like one time I was talking to someone who has an idea for a project she wanted to do. She has a master's degree, but she thought that she needed someone with a PhD to do this project. But when she talked about this project, I'm like, okay, you deserve to do this project. It's just this piece of paper that is stopping you. That's not having a PhD, which is that part of diversity. Is that like somebody said, diversity is about inclusion, right? If we are bringing in everybody, whether they have their masters, some people on the streets know things more than people who went to school, and they need to bring that intelligence and that brilliance to those spaces. So I think, in conclusion, I think meritocracy is a flawed argument on so many levels, but we do not have the time to actually delve deeply into this. So maybe someday we'll talk about this. Thank you so much for watching this video. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one.